The Falling Walls Science Breakthrough of the Year 2022 in Science and Innovation Management. Breaking the wall to rapid science funding. How a new platform is disrupting funding paradigms to benefit the planet. Rachel Kropa, Footprint Coalition.
On November 9th, 1989, I was starting science class in 4th grade. Months later, my grandma went abroad and brought me a piece of the wall to study.
Hi, everyone. As Robert said, we're so grateful to Falling Walls for the acknowledgement and the award in innovation. If we're going to solve the big and complicated problems of the planet, we're not going to be able to be stuck doing business as usual. Here's an example of how business as usual failed us. You probably recognize Dr. Catalin Carrico. She spent the 1990s collecting grant rejections for her mRNA work. It was too risky for everybody to fund. And so she and her partner had to really keep the faith in order to work on it for the decades that they did, ultimately making it a crucial part of the fight against COVID-19 for humanity. But science funding had nearly failed her several times. So remember her story. Now, when it comes to entrepreneurs, we do tolerate a lot of risk, right? A study in 2016 showed that billion-dollar VC-backed private companies had founders who were an average age of 31. Pretty tender age to be running a company. But they do get funding. Now, in the same year, a study on the R01 grant for the National Institutes of Health, which is in the US, and it's the most commonly used grant program, showed that the people who were the first-time recipients were 43 to 46 years old, and the trend was upward. Now, the case is similar at NSF, which is the National Science Foundation, and it's a very complicated process, this is the flow chart for the grant proposal. It's about 10 months for one cycle, and that doesn't really, kind of become conducive to high-risk, high-reward projects, right? What happens ultimately with the NSF is that principal investigators are applying 2.3 times for every award they receive, which is about 2 years of application. And what we're up against is we can't wait 2 years for climate emergency and biodiversity emergency. So here's what Footprint Coalition is doing, the Footprint Coalition Science Engine. Now, Footprint Coalition itself was founded by Robert Downey Jr. in 2019 to work on technologies that provide help in climate change mitigation, adaptation, and planetary restoration. The nonprofit aspect, which is where the Science Engine comes from, in partnership with the Experiment Foundation, built the Science Engine in order to be able to provide fast grant seed funding plus crowdfunding for individual environmental researchers. And here's how it works. In phase 1, an early career researcher from anywhere in the world applies for $5,000 to $10,000 on the platform, which is about 2 pages of work. Scientists on the back end get a prompt to immediately review the project for legitimacy. In phase 2, there is a science lead who's an expert in that environmental technology, and that person acts like an angel investor and basically pushes a button and says, yes, I like this project, at their discretion, and it goes live with 50% of its budget met. And we all make sure we come together so that the crowd does the rest of that project. Now, that obviously is a short amount of time to be able to do. Phase 3 is just go research, right? It's 2 weeks to 3 months in total, and the person is ready to go do their project. This is what a happy, funded researcher looks like. And we want to be able to do this many, many, many times. So The Experiment Foundation has a massive network of scientists and academic partners. So these science leads who are running the categories come from professional research organizations or universities, and they're really good field builders, and they work like entrepreneurs do. This model does several unique things. I'll just go back here. This model does several unique things. One, it makes sure to break up network effects and encourage the high-risk, high-reward ideas that we want. Two, it encourages transparency for the average person to trust the scientific process, and encourages journalists to mine stories from the results. And three, it gives people a shot and creates leaders who might not otherwise have had a shot. So the majority of the people leading projects on our platform are women and people of color. So remember the story about Dr. Carrico. This is Ana Ololade Sengosanya. She might be the next Dr. Carrico. We're meeting her at the beginning of her research career. She uses mycelium to biodegrade the cellulose and plastics in textile waste, and then she can make a composite leather out of that waste, which may change the linearity of the whole textile industry for the planet. Her project took less than 2 months to fund, and it was a community of 41 backers that ultimately funded it. And her work will be finished in January. She's doing her research now. We want to be able to tell more stories like hers, as many as we possibly can. And so we're building a small army of researchers to be able to do things like grow cotton without the plant, or 3D print a steak, or mine rare earth elements using sustainable microorganisms, or map the genomes of disappearing species. We're really grateful to Falling Walls for supporting something unfamiliar, and for COVID-19 Fast Grants program for the inspiration. And we are going to keep pushing the boundaries of scientific funding as much as we can. So please come join us at the Footprint Coalition Science Engine. It's easy and still rigorous. It's inexpensive. You can fund an entire category, or you could fund just one thing that you care about, which might change the course of history. Thank you.